How's it going, everybody? I'm Mark Jackson, founder of Race Provisions, and next to me I have a 2023 KTM 350XCF. This bike is going to be the build bike for Race Provisions over the next year. We're going to do everything we can to it to make it the perfect single track / desert bike for here in Arizona. And we also love the 350XCF because it's one of those bikes that's kind of the do-it-all bike, right? If you had to have just one bike and you wanted to hit the track, do some desert, do some single track, this is one of those bikes that just keeps coming up, and we love the simplicity of that. Excitingly enough, this bike now has 3 hours of time on it, which means that it is officially broken in, or you're allowed to go full throttle. So it's time for the first test ride, and I'm super excited to give this thing a rip. Just from the kind of time I've had on it, breaking it in, getting up to 3 hours, it's clear that it's a total knife of a bike. It just cuts, it's super light, it has plenty of power, so I'm super excited to give this thing a real ride today. Also, if you check out our last video, you'll have all of my kind of first impressions of the bike as a 2023 compared to like a 2020, how all those changes actually look in person, and about 12 or 13 things that are really cool, and then a few things that I'm on the fence about, not too sure whether they're good or bad. So go check out that other video, it'll be in the description, and I'll probably put it up in one of these corners right here as a card. Also, Race Provisions, we make simple performance supplements for dirt bikers and mountain bikers. So if you want to go try out some pre-ride, some intra-ride, go check out raceprovisions.com. There'll be a discount code in the description below. And yeah, subscribe to our channel, and we'll keep working with this bike and do a lot more videos. So stay tuned, here we go. All right, here we go. So thus far, all the mods on the bike are basically just either protection or that aftermath pipe, which actually came with the bike. So there's really nothing other than tires and mooses, which I put on every bike that's changed around on this thing from a performance perspective. It's got a spring for my weight, and then it's also got all the suspension clickers set for mooses, so I got 2 clicks faster on rebound, and then it's a little bit lighter on the compression because it's more of a single track bike today, so we'll see what happens. All right, let's try out map 2, power map, see what happens. Feels really good. Yeah, map 2 is really powerful. That's awesome. And the bike just feels so natural with cornering. That's really cool. So thus far, super into it. Let's keep going. Oops. I did notice that this thing likes to stall, but it is totally okay with throttle on startup. Maybe it's slippery enough where I might want to give it a go with traction control on map 1. That's because this stuff is like powder cinders, and it just kind of rolls. So let's try that out. Okay, so that's map 1, and that's traction control. Let's see what this turn track feels like with that. So map 1 with traction control was definitely super soft, but I say that in a good way because you want these buttons to actually do something, right? Like on some of the older models, that was the maps 1 and 2 and the traction control, like it was hard to tell if there was any big changes. These things really change the bike. It makes it, map 1 with traction control just really flattens out the hit like a ton. So that's pretty cool. But let's give it a roll with map 1 with no traction control. There we go. That button's a little hard to get to, but that's more like it. So map 1, no traction control for that type of truck riding actually felt really good because it still had some of the pop that you needed to, you know, pull the front end up over some stuff. So that was fun. Very cool. All right, let's do map 2. Let's go find some whoops. See what this thing feels like in some whoops. So as far as this thing goes and whoops right now, I think I'm just so used to the 500 that has the XC gear rubber mount that it feels a little bit harsher, but that could also be that the air forks and the suspension just hasn't really broken in yet. So probably got to give it a little bit more time, but it definitely likes to dance a little bit more in the whoops than the 500 does. All right, so out here at a different spot, figured I'd give it another go at some pretty different terrain. There's a nice big sand wash down there and some single track over there. But one of the things that I noticed with the bike that's really cool, if anybody else here has done hair scramble starts or bomb starts on a big 4-stroke, is that this bike does not seem to have that same stalling issue on a hot start. So I've got about 1/8 to 1/4 throttle. So how cool is that? The bike will actually, unlike a lot of big 4-strokes, will actually start up under throttle. I know my 500 that if you, in kind of a hair scramble style start, try to do anything where you've got any throttle on it, it just coughs and sputters. And maybe I'm just not as familiar with the 350s and they don't do that, but I know for a fact that most 450s do that really bad. So yeah, let's try this again. I'm gonna put it back in second. Do about 1/4 throttle. Imagine a hair scramble start. Here we go. Softened up the clickers a little bit more for this rocky stuff. Got Colin here, who's 3rd in Open B in Amra. We're just ripping on some of this rocky single track. This thing feels great. Let's hit it. chugs pretty good when it needs to, because I'm riding it lazy like I do on the 500 right now. So, it does not stall like the old 350s are. That thing stalls all the time. Granted, he's still got motocross gearing on that thing too. Woohoo! Have at it. All right. So I've got just about 4 hours of actual ride time, on the hour meter on this bike now. And my first impression, first review of it is that it is absolutely awesome. It's both playful, it's really nimble, but it also has this planted feel to it when you want it to be planted. But it kind of does cut that line between, the benefits of a two-stroke with the power and the stability of a big four-stroke. All right, so let's talk about the star of this bike. The power plant and the electronics that control this power plant are truly race ready and next level compared to the older generation of bikes. This thing runs so smooth, it runs so clean, it's hard to stall. If it does stall, you can start it back up. Map 1 is incredible for the type of single track riding that we do here in Arizona as a fast B racer. And we're running at 3 to 10,000 feet. Map 1 is plenty of power for that. You will find yourself, almost still being shocked with how much power it has when you get to the higher ends of the RPMs. It's this balance of chuggability and then kind of power at the higher end of the RPMs that you can kind of you can stay in one gear a lot longer than you think and just ring the thing out on a straight until you get to the next corner, bring it back down, go through the corner, bring it out to the next straight. So if you're doing a single track with a lot of turns, you're gonna find yourself just flowing really nicely. But the other thing that's really cool is to know that you have Map 2 there with true 450-like power, kind of an aggressive 450. It actually reminds me a lot of the 2017 YZ 450F that I had, right? Like very, very powerful, a little bit less low-end bark than a 450 in that Map 2, but once you get it into the meat, it is kind of scary fast in a great way, right? It's there if you need it. The other thing that's really cool is that the traction control button works on both of those maps, right? So you can fine tune each one of those maps even further with your traction control button. I don't think I'll need the traction control that often. I could see where, a scenario where it's like wet, slimy clay on top of hard pack, or it's raining and there's slippery rocks and roots at a race where I could use Map 1 with traction control. That'd be kind of the only scenario. I can't really think about why I'd use Map 2 with traction control at the moment, but we'll see over time. The other thing that's kind of cool is that if you are a person coming from a less powerful bike, let's say it's a young person coming from a Super Mini or a 125 that's making a step to a four-stroke, honestly, you could use Map 1 with traction control as kind of training wheels. The bike still has plenty of power to go fast, let's be clear. It just doesn't have that hit that will get people into trouble. It actually becomes incredibly smooth and linear with map 1 with traction control. So could be a really cool option that works for somebody transitioning to a bigger 4-stroke. Little factoid though, if you are buying an XCF and expecting to get the Quickshifter functionality, right? There's a little Quickshifter button over next to the traction control button here. That does not come on the XCFs. I didn't know that. It took me a while of pressing this button like an idiot and not seeing a light coming on, just assuming that it was failing for some reason, and then going through the manual and realizing that the Quickshifter functionality only is for the SXF bikes. So it's still there though, so it might be a little confusing. So the one thing that I'm still, on the fence about is this kind of generalized feeling of stiffness in the bike, right? By the end of that last ride, I've actually gone about 5 clicks more out on compression and softening the forks and the shock in this bike, and that definitely seemed to help with a little bit of that stiffness feeling. But I don't know how to explain it. It just feels like there's a lot of feedback coming up through the forks into your hands, which is a common feedback point of the air fork. But the crazy part is that it's not so bad that I didn't immediately go like, wow, I need to get these things swapped out to, a spring fork conversion, either KYBs or MX Techs or something along those lines, right? I didn't immediately go there. Like it's let's be clear, the suspension is really, really close, and it is really, really, really good for a stock bike. But I'm so used to that 500 that's got MX Tech suspension all around and an XC Gear Mako 360 that I was just noticing that my hands were taking much more of a pounding than they normally would on that bike. Granted, I'm running wraparound handguards. I'm still running the Neckin stock handlebars, which are notoriously stiff. So there's a lot of things at play here. But overall, like outside of that kind of harshness and force delivery into your hand, the suspension is really, 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 really good for a stock bike. Overall, right? Overall, this package as a bike is incredibly close. Get the gearing right, put your tires on, put a spring on, set your clickers, and then run it for a while. It's pretty darn close. And like I said, I was expecting to come into this project going, yeah, I'm gonna put a new ECU on this bike to get it to run right. This bike runs right. This bike runs clean. It runs like a bike with a Get ECU. It's there, right? Which is really cool to know that you're not gonna immediately drop another 1,100 bucks into a bike that you just paid, whatever it is, 12 grand for, 13 grand for these days. I don't think anybody that buys this bike is gonna be disappointed as long as you're staying within kind of the intended use of the bike, right? It's not gonna be a hard enduro bike. It's not gonna be a slow moving trail bike. If you are decent at moving along on single track and keeping this thing in second and third, you're not gonna have overheating issues. It'll be fine. But if you are trying to billy goat this thing up rock, it's gonna have a bad time. It's a hot running motor. There's no fan kit yet. The stator is a low output race stator. So if you're thinking about buying this thing to be a hard enduro bike, expect to have to do a lot of changes to it and expect that you're gonna be in for a long road of tweaking and probably a lot of days of overheating for sure. But as far as this more, second and third gear and up focused race bike, this thing is really, really, really fun. And I say race, but let's just say faster trail, faster single track, that type of riding. This thing is so much fun and has plenty of power. It handles fantastic. Nobody's gonna be upset about buying this bike. So what are the next steps, right, with this bike and this project, right? Mark, you said it was almost too good of a stock bike. You don't want to change anything. Well, you can still make a lot of refinements, and the jury's still out on the suspension. It's really good, but is it, race quality, exquisite suspension? No, right? Maybe it will be when it breaks in, but I'm not holding my breath. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna swap out the handlebar clamps for a Mako 360, try to get rid of some of that harshness into the hands, and then just put 20 to 25 hours on this bike and get the suspension broken in and keep playing with the clickers, keep playing with the fork pressure, Let the mousses break in a little bit more and see where that lands after that. Maybe that takes away all that harshness and this thing just feels perfect, and then the series will be over. No, I'm just kidding. We'll still do stuff to it and we'll still make it at least look cooler. All right, that's it for now. We'll get some more time on this thing and keep doing video check-ins with it and let you guys know if anything, how anything we change affects this bike. Make sure to go check out raceprovisions.com, our company, if you're interested in the nutrition side of riding and potentially helping yourself get better, longer rides and races. From a nutrition perspective, we can help you out there for sure. All right, that's it for now. Take care out there, enjoy the ride.